right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
And
There we go.
welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us, I believe from our home in Atlanta.
Yes, from my home outside Atlanta, although Facebook tells me when I post that I live in Frog Hollow, Georgia. I don't like that. So here I am coming to you from Frog Hollow, Georgia.
That's right. Deidre McCalla joining us. And it looks like Connie has gotten to the party right on time. Hello from Richfield. Hi, Connie.
Connie.
Great to see you. If you're tuned in, let us know where you're tuned in from. If you're enjoying a beverage, because it's Friday afternoon and it's summertime. Here in Minneapolis, it is like the perfect summer day. You can see the sun streaming through my window and Tony's. We live just a few miles apart from each other, so we're enjoying the same nice weather. Tony, are you enjoying any fun beverage on your Friday?
Well, I went into the fridge to get a bubbly water, but there was a box of white wine in there, and it's Friday afternoon.
There you go.
So a little white wine today here.
The universe was telling you something.
That's right.
Well, I am drinking. I actually poured it out of the can, but I wanted to show because it's such a cool can. This is Sociable Cider Works from right here in Minneapolis. This is their cider that's cucumber habanero.
Whoa.
It's just really, and it's
cider.
Yeah, and it's
sounds
not
good.
sweet. It's just like dry and tart with like a little bit of like that fresh cucumber and like a little kick, just a little
Sounds
little
delicious.
kick. So that's what I'm enjoying on this beautiful day. And Deidre, are you?
Well, it's late in the afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. So I am actually having Earl Grey tea decaf, so
Oh.
that I can get.
That
We keep
sounds
our
good.
houses cold in Georgia, so hot tea works
Yeah.
really well.
Well, cheers to you. We're excited to have you here and to revisit your album that came out in 1992. And looks like Gary's joining us from Pewaukee, Wisconsin. And so he must be on vacation somewhere. And Joe locked onto the BCLP signal here in South Minneapolis with my good buddy Jack Daniels. Hey, whatever floats your boat.
That's right. And for those of you who are new to the show, this is what we do every Friday afternoon. We get together with our friends and we listen to good music and we nerd out about the songwriting, about the recording, about all the things that go into to this art. And we're just so happy to have Deirdre here with us today.
Yes, and we want you to feel empowered to hop in the comments and ask any questions you want of Deirdre or any of us. If we have the answers, we're happy to share them.
If we don't, we'll make them up.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can determine whether it's the truth or not. You can fact check us if you want. And that has happened sometimes when we revisit these old records. Sometimes ghosts come back from the past. People who worked on the record or old fans or friends will pop on and be like, that's not what I remember happening. So you never know. But for folks who might not be familiar with your music, Deirdre, you've been making music a long time now. We were just saying before you came on, is this right? 50 years?
50
Almost.
years. Well, okay. I started doing music before that. I count 1973 was kind of like a banner year for me. It was the year that I was first paid for a show. And I was in college and I'd been trying to get this gig at this place called the Last Chance Saloon, which really wasn't suited for me because they had big stage mostly for a band. But the owner called me one day in February and said, Brock Walsh, who's supposed to do this gig in town, is stuck in a snowstorm up in Boston. Can you play this high school? And I said, sure. So I went over and did a show for Our Lady of Lourdes High School in Poughkeepsie, New York. They paid me $50. Oh my
goodness.
God. $50? Are you serious? And so I count from getting paid as being the start of my professional career. But 1973 was also the year that the album that I did on Roulette Records, which was a poem of Tommy James and the Shondells. I don't know how many in the audience of the age that would remember that. It was a minor major label. And I actually had an album called Fur Coats and Blue Jeans. And you have the graphic that someone posted on the event.
Oh my God, look at
This
that.
page that Yeah, almost 50 years of music between them. That's the new album, Endless Grace. And this person probably has one of the 5 copies of Deirdre McCalla, Fur Coats and Blue Jeans. And that came out
Wow.
in
On LP.
1970. Yeah, on LP. I don't even think it came out on cassette. I don't think they were doing cassettes even back then. So that was pretty cool. That Mark Wall, who I friended on Facebook immediately, turns out he's another Vassar alumni.
Excellent.
So I've been doing it a long time. And when I was at Vassar, I majored in theater. Really, the performance is the continuum for everything. And having done that album for Coats and Blue Jeans and majored in theater, at graduation, I was kind of at a crossroads as to whether I was going to directly pursue music or directly pursue theater and acting and such. And for the theater and acting and such, I really needed to be going to something like the Yale Drama School or doing more school. And I was real tired of school at that point. And as you know, musicians can learn from each other and sit around and jam and trade, tips and tricks. So I felt I knew I had a whole lot to learn with music, but I felt that I could do some stuff on my own at that point because I was really tired of being in school. So that's how music became the full-time thing that I did to. And yeah, I just been doing it ever since. Spent a lot of time, a lot of salad days in the Midwest and in New York. And, my first independent album was with Olivia Records in 1985. That was released, and I did 3 albums with them and 2 albums on my own, the most recent being Endless Grace. So really the whole point of doing an album for me is to have a ticket to get a gig, because it's the live performance that I thrive on. There are musicians that love being in the studio. It's a lot of fun. Gets a little tedious after a while to me. But I do it because it's my entree ticket to promoting myself, to getting to be on stage and with people, which is why this pandemic was so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know, and
We
which is
know.
why we started the show, actually.
Exactly.
Because we missed everybody, and
Right.
even it's not quite the same of being in person. But look, we got Joni here now, and our friend Chris went and got a growler, and Alan went and got a gin martini,
See?
and it's even happier. This is how we
Growler,
survived.
is that a Minnesota thing?
It's-
a growler?
It's
what
it's
the-
a craft brewery thing. It's like where you get
Okay.
like the jug of beer directly from the brewery. So, but I don't
Directly
know.
into your mouth?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where the term growler came from, though. If anyone knows, they can throw it in the comments, because I actually don't know the origins of that. But either way, people are enjoying their Friday. They're excited for the music. So I'd say let's try and maybe start digging into this record. That, again, the album we're going to revisit that you picked is Everyday Heroes and Heroines. It came out in 1992. And was this released on 92? This would have been CD. Was it also on cassette at that time, or?
I think that they may have stopped cassette. No, because I have cassettes on the shelf. Yeah.
You still have some.
Yeah. I still have some. That was still in the phase that Olivia, my second album with them, With a Little Luck, at first came out on cassette and LP, and I really, really, really had to lobby for them to, can you also put it out on CD? Because it was such a new format.
Yeah.
Back in 1988, and I think that's when I was lobbying them. So I think when
was
Everyday
great.
Heroes and Heroines came out, they did all 3, and eventually, as you know, cassettes were dropped, and then LPs were dropped.
We were just talking about that before we came on, and that cassettes are now having a comeback. I mean, you never know when
Renaissance.
these things will come back. So maybe you'll do another rush of sales of those cassette tapes. But for now, we're going to listen to the title track to this album. Is there anything you want to say about it before we take a listen?
I sent you pictures because the inspiration for this song, which a lot of people, I don't talk about on stage because then they would realize how totally weird I am, was Joe Montana and Holly Near. And when I was living in California at the time, I was a really, really big 49er and football fan. Lost a relationship actually once over football because, you know, my girlfriend wanted to get frisky at one point, and I'm like, I'm watching TV. It's the
game
playoffs.
is on, honey.
It's the playoffs. Come on, give me a break. But I was thinking about Joe Montana one day, and realizing that as awesome as he was as a player, like Super Bowl ring for days, he wouldn't be able to do what he does if it wasn't for the people creating the pocket, for the people protecting him, for the linemen, for the people on the front lines, making it impossible for him to be Joe Montana. And then that also morphed in my mind to Holly, who is wonderful, who's incredible, who's a wonderful colleague of mine. In fact, that picture is from a postcard that I have that she had sent me, thanking me for something. And there are the Holly Nears of the world. And then there were, the grunts, which I considered myself in that category, out there doing the day-to-day that helps create the groundwork so that people like Holly and Chris and what were known as the big three or the big four at the time could shine. So really, the start of this song was Holly Near and Joe Montana.
That's amazing. All right. Well, let's give it a listen. This is Deidre McCalla with Everyday Heroes and Heroines here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
From the heart of the country to the bright city streets, there's a rhythm to the living and it always repeats. With a whole lot of soul and a measure of pride, we are ordinary people simply living our lives. The sun comes up, we start another morning. When the sun goes down, it's the end of the day. We don't have much, but it doesn't really matter. If you get ahead, the government just takes it away. Sometimes you lose, most times you choose to laugh a lot and learn to call any draw win. We're struggling in the backfield every day, heroes and heroines. We'll never be famous, we'll never be rich, we'll never stop hoping that we hit the big six. We work in the diners, we work in the mines, we're working at the office, clocking in right on time. The sun comes up, you start another morning. When the sun goes down, it's the end of the day. We don't have much, but it doesn't really matter. If you get ahead, the government just takes it away. Sometimes you lose, most times you choose to laugh a lot and learn to call any draw win. We are struggling in the backfield every day, heroes and heroines. We come in all kinds of colors, every kind of size. A love in our hearts, burning deep in our eyes. Mothers and fathers and families and friends, workers and lovers, straight, gay, lesbian. Well, the sun comes up, you start another morning. When the sun goes down, it's the end of the day. We don't have much, but it doesn't really matter. If you get ahead, the government just takes it away. Sometimes you lose, most times you choose to laugh a lot and learn to call any draw win. We're struggling in the backfield every day, heroes and heroines. We are struggling in the backfield every day, heroes and heroines.
Oh, I love a good long fade. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. Deirdre McCalla. I wish that hadn't gone like you don't hear that as much now, and I love it because it's such a
Fading?
big jam. Well, a long
Right.
fade like that. I really
Right,
like that.
right.
So Deirdre McCalla with "Everyday Heroes and Heroines," the title track to her 1990 2 release, which we are revisiting today on the back catalog listening party. And that track has such a lovely vibe to it. In fact, it reminded me of like, well, this came out in 92, which so this makes sense. That had kind of that folk country vibe that like Nancy Griffith and Mary Chapin and
Well,
kind of had that
the
vibe.
background vocals on this, I don't know if you recognize the voice, but it's Lori Lewis
Ah,
and her partner in crime, Tom Rosen, are doing the back. Teresa Troll is also in there out there, but and Lori actually went on to produce half of the next album that came afterwards. So she's been floating around my music for quite some time.
so
Wonderful.
I'm guessing she was
Nightingale.
singing fiddle too. Was she doing the fiddle?
Actually, no, that was a player, and I'm looking it up on the liner notes here because I said, I don't think Lori brought her fiddle. It was a player by the name of Greg Spatz.
Fantastic
Great.
sound on
Yeah.
the fiddle. That's what I
Really
want to hear
good.
to start Friday, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
and Lori Lewis, for some of our regular listeners, might remember she's actually been a guest on the show as well. So yeah, we're big fans of
She's
Lori's
awesome.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And so I was hearing some some country and maybe some swampy Louisiana style kind of Cajun vibes going on here. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your musical influences? Like where do you come from musically?
Well, musically, the earliest music I remember listening to, especially since I had an older brother, is really Motown. And that's why more so than I think a lot of singer-songwriters of my generation, I have more of a rhythmic sensibility to things. But from about seventh grade on, I went to an all-girls Catholic boarding school and in upstate New York, and I was the first Black student ever to be at that school, and that's where I was starting to hear folk music and introduced to Joan Baez and the whole folk scare during that late 60s, early 70s, and the way things come out in the albums for me is really the producers hearing kind of where I'm hinting that the song is, the genesis of, and them choosing to accentuate, those elements of it. So that's why there's a little bit of a schizophrenic quality, I think, to all of my albums, because there's some where it's just this wonderful kind of. I have a number of songs that are in this vein of definitely country and country folk. There are some that are just rockers. There are some that are pop, and I don't shy away from pop. Some people think it's a bad word. It works for me. There's some bad pop, just like there's bad country or bad folk. And I really have trusted most of my 3 of my albums, 3 and a half, were produced by Teresa Troll, who is an incredible songwriter and performer and singer in her own right. And the gift of working with Teresa is that she could hear where the songs needed to go, and she knew how to articulate that to the other musicians. And that's why I work with producers instead of self-producing. A good producer knows how to communicate what they want or what they're hearing or what they're suggesting, not to dictate, but kind of to give a direction and articulate it in a way to other musicians that I have no idea. I would hear with some of the poppier songs, Teresa saying, okay, I want a Michael McDonald feel on the drums or on the piano or wherever, or like this. And I wouldn't know how to articulate that to other musicians. So I really allow the songs in the studio to be the best that they can be. They're always built, for the most part, with some exceptions, but pretty much built on the guitar and vocal arrangement that the producer is given and that all the musicians are listening to in the first place. So it's built upon that, and it's, strays from it and embellishes it and deepens it. And it's a joy to me to work with people who can do that.
And, it's interesting you say that because do you find then after you've recorded a song, as you said, it kind of gets deepened and enriched, certainly by having all these different great players on it. But do you find that when you play it live after you've recorded it, that it changes at all after that process?
Well, for one thing, one of the things that changes is that even though it's built on my guitar arrangement, I don't, except for the very first album, don't doubt it, I don't play guitar in
Hmm.
the studio on my albums. And it's because I played guitar on the first one that in the studio, your limitations really become obvious, and it's on record and it lasts forever. As a solo performer, I have a lot of interesting habits. One is creating the rhythm, as I was talking about before, with my hands, with my fingers. Well, there's a drummer in the studio, there's a bass player. Deirdre, you don't need to do that. And I
Hmm.
remember one song in particular with Teresa working with me, because it at the time meant a lot to me to record. But I kept thumping the top of the guitar to create the rhythm, and I couldn't stop myself. So she wound up putting cotton balls on my fingers so that it wouldn't sound. And essentially from that experience and every record on, I realized that it actually I pay for all my albums. I raise the money from wonderful fans. And for my Olivia years, Olivia leased the albums from me. So I'm paying. And I realized that my struggling to play the guitar in the studio was costing me more,
Right.
because I'd have to do it over and over and over and get the cotton balls out and to get a usable take. And so what I do, I've the producers have brought in some wonderful guitarists. Mike Marshall played on
Mm,
Wow.
with a little luck. Nita Gerber has
wow.
done a lot of work for me. And even on this last album, Larry Cheney, what I do is that I have the producer separate out and give me, well, now a digital file, it used to be a cassette, of all just the guitar parts, because they would play my guitar part, yes, but better, and add things. And I had all these tremendous lessons that I
Mm,
then go to play the guitar closer live
oh,
to what they do. So
interesting.
it's I consider it a great learning opportunity, and it's expanded my playing for
Wow.
sure.
Very cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And looks like Joni chimed in. Also, she also heard a Mary Chapin connection. I thought of the "Shut Up and Kiss Me" era of Mary
Mm.
Chapin. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then Joe said on this and all the tracks on "Endless Grace," which is that new record you just put out, the instrumental mixes are each unique, subtle, and exactly what the lyrics require. These folks never repeat themselves. And I think
That's a great
he's
producer.
really yeah
Thank
he's
you,
really
Joe,
speaking
for
to that
hearing that. Yeah.
um, also that these songs can live in all these different ways, and I
Right.
think that's something that I think is really special about what you do and the working with the producers that you've chosen is that they're hearing that in your songs, right?
Right.
Because it would be
Right.
easy to produce, like, you could probably do the same set of songs and do them all in a, like, a folk vibe or
Right.
a rock vibe or whatever it is. And I love that they take the time to figure out what suits each song,
Right.
because I think
Yeah,
it
there are
makes it
people
better.
that have said to me more than once, "Why don't you just do a guitar and vocal album?" And I understand where they're coming from, and I love it that they love the song so much. But I'm thinking in my head, because that would be really boring to me.
Or it's a live show. It's
Right.
Oh
really
Yeah.
a
yeah,
live
Come see
show.
me play live.
right,
Right.
right. Come see me live. And the great balance, though, because then people say, "Well, your shows aren't, like your albums," and I'm
Hmm.
like, "Well, they're not supposed to be." I
Right.
find I find that there are elements of the live show that aren't in the album, and there are elements of the album that aren't in the live show, and so um, I actually think that they complement each other.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just different mediums, really. I mean, yeah.
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 Definitely. Well, my cat was drawn apparently to the music because she doesn't usually make an appearance, but she came in today. I want to dig into another one of these tracks because they are again eclectic, and we want to show that versatility. So this next song you chose from this record is "Outside." Is there anything you want to say about it before we take
Yeah,
this?
this song was written by Eileen Weiss, who is a friend of mine who lives in New York. I think a lot of people, especially I find of my son's generation, and he's a millennial, thinks that if you don't, that you should absolutely write all of your material and don't think lesser. We've had this conversation a number of times. He thinks lesser of performers that are interpreters that do other people's songs. And I have said frequently on stage, I do songs I've written and songs I wish I'd written.
Mm.
You know, thinking about someone like Ann Hills, who does just wonderful, wonderful songs interpretation, or Mary Black. So this is written by a friend of mine, and who is wonderfully quirky. She's not ever toured much. I think her most successful album has been an album of kind of like bizarre takes on Christmas songs, which is an interesting, you know, career choice for a very Jewish girl that Eileen Weiss is. So her biggest success has been on Christmas songs. I've recorded 3 of her songs, and I just think she's an outstanding writer. This is a song also that Teresa and I tried to record on With Little Luck, which was the album previous to this, and we couldn't quite get a groove for it, and so we just tabled it. And what made it click for this next album that happened was Teresa brought in Bonnie Hayes, who is, besides being an incredible singer, songwriter, and, you know, writer of a couple of the hits on Bonnie Raitt's Nick of Time album, is an extraordinary keyboardist. And Bonnie found the groove. Plus her brother was on drums. Kevin Hayes is on drums throughout the album. He was also the drummer for the Robert Cray Band. And so between them making up the rhythm section, they found a groove for this Eileen Weiss song, and I was able to finally record it.
Nice.
Awesome. Let's give it a listen. This is Outside from Deidre McCalla here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I refused the first proposal and passed the buck. Still I was received, it seemed like a stroke of luck. Steady and unsteady I go, and I alter some. Still I know what I feel, I have come outside. There's a city of liberty and brotherly love. There's a span of life, the home of alone and the done. There's a fort to surrender and a hell to cry. And I may have retreated once, but I'm coming back outside. Outside it isn't always sunny when you look up in the air. But even when the shining sun's not breaking through, it always does what it can do, whether or not the clouds are there. And if I'm sounding hopeful, well, good for me.
All right, Deirdre McCalla with Outside from her 1992 release, Everyday Heroes and Heroines.
I don't know if you could hear it. I'm forgetting which part of the songs it appears, but this kind of like this swooshy shaker sound. And the percussionist Michael Spiro, he had all these toys with him, as percussionists are, kind of like bizarre wizards
Yes.
to make sounds. And he couldn't get the sound that he was hearing in his head. He wound up taking some sweet and low sugar packets and shaking them in front of the mic. He goes, "Yes, this is it." And that is how we credit it on the album. That Michael
Oh,
Spiro,
nice.
Sweet and Low Sugar Packets.
Oh,
Actually,
awesome.
I think it said artificial sweetener because we weren't sure that we were trademarking
Oh,
something.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you could have gotten an endorsement from Sweet
Yeah,
and
there you
Low.
go.
Right.
There you go.
It's kind of descriptive too of that sound, right?
I
Right.
know, actually, it was funny. I was thinking if you had said Sweet and Low, someone would be looking through like the gear catalog, like, what is that? What kind of percussion instruments is that Sweet and Low?
Right.
I
Right.
love hearing those stories because I mean it really goes to show that it's about what suits the song. It's not
Right.
always in your in your instrument collection, or it doesn't
Right.
have to be a real instrument. I mean, and I think that gets to what Chris was saying here about kind of letting others help you take your musical vision to another place, being open to those types
Right.
of things.
Right. I think it's a danger of a lot of artists that self-produce because a lot of self-produced albums I feel are kind of very inbred
Mm.
and moving inward instead of expanding the experience outward. Some people are like Stevie Wonder. Hey, you can produce
Yeah.
any old day you want, Stevie.
And
But
Prince, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it takes a very special,
Right.
very
Yes.
big-minded, I think, person
Right,
who's
yeah,
already
and-
seeing the whole picture.
The whole picture, and most of
Right.
us are not,
Right.
humbly
Right.
speaking. So
Yeah, well, it looks like my mom's chiming in to say, great song, love her voice and love the arrangement. And
Aw.
from Connecticut, and Joe saying, rice and a planter's peanuts work great around the campfire.
As a
Nice.
shaker, yes,
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, very true. And one of the things I was noticing, by the way, the cover of this album is obviously you're on the cover. This album came out how many years ago? And you don't look that much different, Deirdre. I just want to say that.
Thank
so
you.
whatever you're
it must
doing
be
with the
the
music.
decaf black tea here.
Decaf
or
tea.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, really, because
Right.
I was like, well, you don't want to see a picture of me in 1992. We'll just put
Yeah,
it that way.
there was an audible gasp. Actually, I did an album release show at Eddie's Attic in Decatur here last weekend, or this past Sunday, yeah. And it was also billed as a birthday party, and so when I got up on stage, I said, "Okay, folks, this is what 69 looks like," and people were like,
69?
"Yeah." Yeah, and especially the bartender, who's a young black woman. She went, "No, you're lying. You're not."
I'm just
So-
saying, music keeps you young,
That's
music,
right.
music, and my mother's, gene pool. So there you go.
Well, I love it. And if you guys out there listening have comments or questions, throw them in there. I do want to mention that Deirdre just mentioned her album release that she did, her hometown album release she did this past Sunday. She just put out a new record, which Joe mentioned, Endless Grace, which I'm a huge fan of. And I've played a lot in my radio show. And yeah. And it's available now. You can get that. You can also get the digital files of this record we're enjoying today. So you can check out all of Deirdre's catalog on her website. And she'll be touring around. I think Midwest is your not as far west as us yet, but
Right. I have Minneapolis and Chicago area in my sights. It's we're still slowly coming back from COVID, from the pandemic, and so many presenters are being very, very understandably cautious about how far ahead they're planning and what they can promise, because we've all learned to flex. So
A lot of folks jump the gun, I think, early on,
Yeah.
and it costs a lot of money for people to reschedule stuff. So we
Right.
understand that. But I reckon the schedule, not only can you buy the music, but you can see where she's going to be here at
yes, on my website.
DeirdreMcCalla.com.
awesome. And we're going to continue with the music here. I want to get in as many tracks as we can because this music is feeling really good to me today. And after a week away, I was like, really missed seeing all of you and hanging out with you, playing
We missed
music.
you. We missed you too, Ellen.
I know. It's funny because I had this great weekend with family in Iowa, big family reunion, and it was lovely. But it is funny. I was like, I feel like it's been so long since I've hung out with my people, and I realized it was like 2 weeks. But anyway, so I'm happy to be here, listening to music and having Deirdre join us today. So this next track you picked, Deirdre, is "Blessings." Is there anything you want to say about it before we take a listen?
This is, given how many requests I get from it, has really become a lesbian wedding song. Not that there's any gender identification in it. Just that a lot of lesbians have written me and said, "Can we do this at our wedding?"
Awesome.
And I'm like, "Yes." And you know what? You don't really need to ask me. It's okay. You can just play. You can just play the song. But it's one of those rare songs where the song title is not in the song at all. There's nowhere. If anything, people don't remember that it's blessings, and kind of like the tagline, and it is because I have you. But really, as a songwriter, entitling the song, it's what the song is talking about, and being thankful for, amidst all of our hard times and all that we go through, realizing that there are gifts all around us and there is healing all around us. So blessings.
It's a great reminder, and we're going to listen to it right now. Blessings. This is Deidre McCalla here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
In a world that's ragged with sorrow, and every dream is stolen, begged or borrowed, blood flows in rivers on the evening news. Be it fortune or fate that drowns me and you. Can we share the light? Can we swear by all that's right? To find a way. I know today I have a world of song and will to carry on. And each new day that dawns shining through my window, I have a morning breeze that gently touches me. Reason enough to believe in a tomorrow. Each moment I embrace is precious and so new. I treasure it more than ever before, because I have you. And every heart that's ever been broken starts to fear it will never reopen. The walls of our pride don't always conceal how the wounds rarely seem to completely heal. But you reached inside, saw the child who cried and did not turn away. And I know today I have a world of song, a will to carry on. And each new day that dawns shining through my window, I have a morning breeze that gently touches me. Reason enough to believe in a tomorrow. Each moment I embrace is precious and so new. I treasure it more than ever before, 'cause I have you. The love we feel is the gift that keeps us alive. With every breath I know my life has been blessed by all the kindness in your eyes. I have a world of song, a will to carry on. Each new day the dawn shining through my window, I have a morning breeze that gently touches me, reason enough to believe in a tomorrow. Each moment I embrace is precious and so new. I treasure it more than ever before because I have you. I treasure it more than ever before because I have you.
Beautiful. That was Deirdre McCalla with Blessings from her
I just want to
1992.
say I picked that track just so I could hear Bonnie Hayes on the acoustic piano again because it's such a lovely part, and that's a good example of in terms of arrangements and what I'm looking for. Um, Half of the new album was produced by Julie Wolfe, who I had never worked with before. And I really, she said no one had ever vetted her this seriously, this hard, because she, has a playlist on Spotify that she sends. So, well, this is my work, and I, knew her by reputation, of course. But in listening to some of the things that she's done, one of the things I said to her was that, okay, with this album here and with this artist, I'm not hearing enough drama. I'm not, because as a theater person, each song should really have an arc. It should swell. It should pull back. It should, and so Julie and I had discussions on why that was or wasn't happening in that song and having me recognize it. But in Blessings, it just gets me every time after the bridge of this song, when the piano comes in for the final chorus, and Bonnie, who is a hard edge rocker, in her own music, is playing so lyrically and so beautiful. It just stops me every time.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that kind of now that you say that, and having listened to these songs, like that theater element,
Yeah.
is really apparent. I was just having this conversation with my kids. We were listening to some Billy Joel music, and Billy Joel, like I heard once maybe that he wanted to be in theater or something like that. But the songs do have almost like he's writing them for a visual
Right.
performance or something
Right.
like that. And each one of the songs we've heard today also kind of represents
They have an arc to them. Yes.
yeah, there's a beginning, middle, end, and
Yeah.
and all the good stuff in between.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking about that with this song. Obviously you said a lot of folks have requested to play it at their weddings, and I can totally see why. It's this beautiful love song and a song of gratitude. But I'm wondering, did you just write it as a love song? Did you think of it as a wedding song when you wrote it? Do you ever write songs, by commission or by request for people?
I've only done that once. A friend of mine was retiring, and her co-workers knew how important music was to her and wanted her, like, what do you give Sarah? So they actually commissioned me to write a song, kind of summarizing her spirit in academia, not her work, but really what she brought to them. So that's the only time, I don't recall specifically, other than a general sense of gratitude. I was in a very, very positive place, in a very positive relationship that ended during the playoffs shortly thereafter. So in that sense, perhaps it was written for her. I know a lot of the time that I was, singing it, as with any song, it can morph as to the meaning that it has in your life. So after my son was born, he is this young gift of a child, is what I was more than often than not in my mind, being grateful for and singing for on stage. Different songs really, if it's a well-written song, whether you wrote it or someone else wrote it, comes to mean different things at different stages in your life, and deepens in a way. And even sometimes when people come to me and say, how that song is in their life, I'm like, huh, wow, I didn't, look at it from that particular perspective, but way cool.
Yeah. I think that is one of the most amazing things about music and something we've been noticing a lot here on the back catalog listening party since we're listening to older records.
Hmm.
How often the songs that we're listening to now take on a totally different meaning. Listening to it in 2022
Mm,
Right.
after the
yeah.
pandemic we've come through, like listening to a song like Blessings, like yeah, it just made me think of all the things I'm grateful for right now,
Right.
which is like this moment hanging out with all of you. And I feel, yeah, if I was listening to it 3 years ago, I would have been thinking of something totally different.
Hmm.
So, I want to get to one of Joe had a few different questions, but we'll get to this because we were talking about theater. So let's get to this one first. He said, "What were your favorite roles in theater and favorite plays?"
You know, I wound up, especially in college. I started out in high school with musical theater, and just took to it immediately. But when I went to study theater, I went to Vassar College, which historically had a really awesome theater department. But Vassar had, the year before, started admitting men. It used to be a women's college, and men. And the drama department was so thrilled with having men on campus that they were choosing plays that had strong male leads.
Hmm.
And it was really kind of disconcerting. So I wound up actually not doing that much acting. As I had gone, I thought that I would concentrate on acting, because I realized uh, what kind of plays were chosen was not going to change unless women were directing.
Mhm.
So I actually kind of shifted my focus to directing, and
Hmm.
so I with a sub specialization in lighting design,
Mm.
so more toward the technical
Mm.
end of theater, which is why when I finished college and was like, okay, if I really wanted to do acting, I kind of haven't been doing that for um, a number of years. And that I wound up doing music. But
Interesting.
I tell you, just I've been seeing some performances lately that have really just been making me miss theater a lot, and I'm not quite sure what to do about that. Hamilton, actually
Mm.
being,
Yeah.
which I didn't get to see live because I don't make that much money as a musician. But, but when
True.
when it was broadcast on TV, just the
Hmm.
intensity, um, and the commitment that you sense in the performances, and you can even see it in some of the excerpts from the um, Tony Awards that were on. It is so powerful. It is so amazing. And in fact, in the song "The Ground Shifts" on "Endless Grace," when the bridge happens, there's a main line, and then there's kind of like a Greek chorus um, talking in the back, and that actually was directly influenced by Hamilton. That kind
Cool.
of technique. So again, to me, it's all woven into performance, and the theater of it is woven into um, every second on stage. When I was doing musicals in high school that got me hooked, um, there's a moment on stage where you just are. And I kind of liken it to being on top of a mountain, and there is nothing but air and space, and that you are one with. Um, and it's an incredible moment. It's an incredible high. And it's that moment that I hope for. I don't get it all that often, but it's that moment I'm trying to get to every time I step on stage,
Mm.
where
Yeah.
you're just connected to everything and to the audience.
Mm. Yeah. Really well put. I think any of us who've had even a glimmer of those moments
Yeah,
know what you're
that's
talking about.
it's that yeah,
Yeah.
it's just almost this oneness, yeah,
Yeah.
that you
Yes.
can only get
Absolutely.
I think through art and
And,
music.
and and that's why I'm glad that streaming happened during the pandemic, both from an economic and a connection place. But that's why I actually find the streaming shows very hard, because all the energy is going out one way, And I'm actually more drained with the streaming shows than I am in live shows because I'm energized with the
Right.
live shows because
It's the interaction.
it's circular breathing.
Yeah, yeah, it's
You
coming
know?
back to you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's why we're so grateful, by the way, for all of you out there who have been commenting and giving us your
Yes.
takes and telling us what you think. That was really the reason that this show started was to kind of to have something that went around.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think that's that. And as live music has opened back up, as I've gotten back
Thank
out
goodness.
there, I forgot how powerful it is in person for that. And I think everybody has. And I know I've talked to more than one musician who said that they're never going to take a gig for granted again.
Right. I saw
Yeah.
Bonnie Raitt a couple of weeks ago here. My son and I went, and you could see it in her face how relieved and happy she was to be in front of a live and be with and in front of a live audience again. It's palpable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have, I think this hour has gone by so fast. I think we
I
only
know.
have time
Oh,
for one
goodness.
more song.
Okay.
What? And again, folks out there, I know we have a couple questions we still have to get to, so we'll try and get to those before the end of the show. But let's get to at least one more song. This is "Girl You Don't Know." Is there anything you want to say about this, Deirdre?
This is, written around 92. It addresses the issue of homelessness. It's probably the most requested song I get in shows from this album. And it's a persistent issue that just won't go away, that gets worse and worse. And so it's a subject near and dear to my heart. And then I think that as a country and a planet, we really need to be looking at.
This is "Girl You Don't Know" from Deirdre McCalla here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Five o'clock in the evening, and I'm heading for home. Pulling up to a red light, got the news on the radio. A woman on the corner, looking tattered and beat, catches me cold as I wonder when they'll clean up these streets. She said, "Girl, you don't know how lucky you are. You got food on your table and a cute foreign car. You got a roof over your head and a dry place to sleep. You better wipe that sorry look up off your face, 'cause in the wink of an eye, girl, you could be me." Work like a demon for a righteous company, but my back went bad and suddenly they had no use for me. My youngest boy took sick, well, there was only one out. 'Cause any fool knows that a life is worth far more than a house. Girl, you don't know how lucky you are. You got food on your table and a cute foreign car. You got a roof over your head and a dry place to sleep. You better wipe that sorry look up off your face, 'cause in the wink of an eye, girl, you could be me. I never did believe that it would happen to me, that I could be swept away and tossed in a pile of this country's debris. You can't look in my eyes 'cause you're much too afraid of the truth they'd reveal. I bet you feel safe with your windows rolled up in your automobile. Settled in the shadow of the freeway overpass, cleared her bed of styrofoam and old broken glass. I stared at the road before me till the light finally changed. Put my foot on the gas and fled with the words still trapped in my brain. Girl, you don't know how lucky you are. You got food on your table and a cute foreign car. You got a roof over your head and a dry place to sleep. You better
Deidre McCalla with Girl You Don't Know from her 1992 album Everyday Heroes and Heroines, which we have been revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Deirdre joining us from her home outside Atlanta. And I have to say, when you introduced the song about being about homelessness, which it clearly is, I wasn't expecting such a great pop rock anthem. Which is awesome. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's. It says a lot. I don't know how you envision. I know you said a lot of times your producer teases stuff out that you weren't expecting. I don't know if that's how you envisioned the song when you wrote it, but it's great because people do want to hear it, and then they
Right.
hear the lyrics and the message, which is so important.
Right. There's a really range. I see one of the questions here from Joni asking about the Americana scene and how it's changing. And I think when I was I think it's great. Alison Russell is awesome. There are two names here. I don't know, Yolanda and Amanda Shires. One of the things that's changing and that I've been lobbying for years is kind of the pigeonhole that a lot of Black performers are put in when they do not fit what people think Black music should be. So they're not doing blues, they're not doing R&B. As I have in one of my promo pieces, because there's a lot more percussion as there is, in this album. But as I said in the beginning, percussion is just part of what I do, and a good strong drum sound, and especially on Endless Grace, the last song, especially, I Do Not Walk This Path Alone, which kind of has a rock gospel country feel to it, and I said to Julie Wolfe arranged that, and I said people are just going to have to get used to it, that's how Black folk do folk. I like it that the palette is expanding, that there are so many Black American performers coming forward and expanding people's ideas of what Black acoustic music could look like. I'm still working on what Americana means.
It's kind of like folk, and that no one really knows.
Right. No one really knows. And that this week that on the NACC folk chart, Endless Grace came in at number 7 for the week. And I look at the other artists on that list.
It's like Steve Earle and Wilco. Yeah.
Right. Molly Tuttle. I'm just like, so that's folk, so we're all folk, it's kind of meaningless, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the string band tradition, especially, the African American string band tradition that is starting to finally be recognized
Right.
as such an important influence in country music, and
Right.
and all that Americana stuff is like it's got its roots
Right.
there,
Right.
and it's been great to see that.
And speaking of supporting these artists, which is a big part of this show, is if you like what you've heard and folks are loving it, because we know from the comments, then you can support Deirdre's music by buying it directly from her. You can get CD copies of certainly the new record, and you can get digital files of the albums as well. And David also mentioned that her whole catalog is also on Bandcamp as well. So that's another. And yeah, I'm not sure if this is Bandcamp Friday. Usually it's the first Friday.
I don't think there's going to be. They did a Juneteenth thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then I think they're not doing it till August or September.
Either way, it's another place you can get her
Right.
music.
And if I remember right now, Deirdre, you did mention you might have some cassettes sitting back there.
Yeah,
If you guys want an artifact,
Yeah. For your
you
museum.
go to her website, and I bet you she will send you whatever she's got. She showed us some boxes before the
Right,
show,
yes.
boxes of CDs and things like that.
50 cassette tapes.
But I bet you
special.
she would sign it for you, and it's it goes a long way to showing.
Actually, when people do order Endless Grace, which is the only CD that's available. I mean, all the others are digital. But if you send me a note when you order the CD on Bandcamp for Endless Grace, send me a note that you want it signed. And because I'm doing the mailing, I'm wearing all the hats, all the headphones and the hats.
Which is why if you're buying it on Bandcamp, you can throw in a little extra, and there's
Pay
also
what
the
you
tip
want.
jar. There's also
Yeah.
the tip jar. So
Yep.
again, we got to fuel up that car for Deidre as she hits the road, and
Yeah.
and also
For
so she
July,
can
especially.
and to support her for all her admin responsibilities, sending out those albums. So you can throw something in her tip jar. And Joe asks, "What's the statute of limitations on back catalog? I'd love to hear an Ellen Tony show on Endless Grace." Well, it's
I think we
true.
decided it was a year, right?
At
Ellen?
least a year. So it's too fresh. It just came out. So
Right,
but
right.
you all should buy the record now because it's awesome. And then when we're ready to when it's properly aged,
When it's
like
old
a
enough.
fine wine,
Right.
we
Yes.
will revisit it again with Deirdre because we'd love to have you back, Deirdre, on
I'd
the
love
show.
to be
'Cause
back. This has been fun. Thank you so much for inviting
much
me.
fun.
Thanks so much for spending the hour with us. This is, again, every week, Ellen and I say this, like, whatever
part of the week.
happened this week,
A lot
however
happened.
terrible things have been, whatever's in the news cycle, this 1 hour of just celebrating great art like yours and doing it with others, people who are sitting there on the other end, enjoying it with us. It just means the world to us. And we sure appreciate you, Deirdre, and all of you out there
Yes.
for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, for sure.
Yes, and if you like the show, as Connie has and Joe, then like it on YouTube. Give it the thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get reminders because we again do this every week with different guest artists revisiting different old records. And next week we have Matt the Electrician joining us from Austin, Texas. Great songwriter who was supposed to join us earlier in the summer, but then got sick after being on tour. So now he's going to be joining us. It'll be a lot of fun, and also, we want to thank all the people who support us through the Patreon. These are the folks that have kept the show going long past the shutdown, which is what we thought we'd only be doing this, a month, Tony?
Yeah. Remember, like in 3 or 4 weeks, we're gonna just be, all
every
gigging again.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then it was 6, and then it was 6 months, and then
it turns out people really liked hearing the show, so we've kept it going even as gigging has come back. And we want to thank these folks who keep the show going: Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, Many Tracks, and Nikki, and maybe you. If you want to support the show and get invited to some cool special things, get first look at the guests, and like next week, we have an after party with our top tier patrons. So you can check that out at our Patreon page. But mainly we want to thank all of you for being here and Deirdre for spending the hour with us and sharing
Thank
your
you.
art. Thank you. And have a wonderful week, folks. Holiday weekend. Enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you next Friday here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Cheers.
Cheers.